Thanks for joining us at the Business Growth Cafe, where each week we select from a menu of topics for a focused discussion with an industry expert to provide insights that can impact your business's growth. With your host, Angelo Ponzi.
Hi there, this is Angelo Ponzi, your host here at the Business Growth Cafe, and thank you for joining me. We're going to have a great show today. We're going to explore public relations. Now, public relations has changed quite a bit over the last 5-10 years as kind of this digital transformation has really come about. And more importantly, I think that a lot of the PR firms that I've dealt with have really morphed into more marketing firms, right? They're doing more for their clients than just a press release or doing a press tour or sending out press kits. That's passé. That's old school stuff now. Right now, everything is digital. But more importantly is how do we take that information and making sure it's working its way into the press, whether it's TV or radio or print or newspapers or online, so you as consumers can make sure that you find out about a product or a service. Now, if you're a business owner and you're listening to this show, how does it impact you? Well, I think today you're going to hear some great insights and get some ideas from Amy Levy, Public Relations. Now, Amy is a PR professional. We've got to know each other over the last 6 or 8 months. She's been in the business a long time. She started her own company about 20 years ago. So she knows what she's doing. She's got a lot of great insight. She happens to specialize a little bit more in consumer products and food and restaurant and things like that. But if you know me and you've been listening, marketing is marketing, and we can leverage those kinds of experiences and what we know, and not only in B2B, but in B2C as well. The other area that she really specializes in is crisis public relations. Now, hopefully you don't and never have to use a crisis PR person, because if you do, that means you've gotten yourself into trouble a little bit. But we're going to have some great insights on that today. So again, joining me today at the cafe is Amy Levy, CEO, President of Amy Levy Public Relations. But before we start, here's my commercial. My company, the Ponzi Group, provides consulting, interim, and fractional marketing and leadership services with a focus on the strategic and analytical side of marketing. We take a holistic approach to driving business growth. Consider us your marketing architects. We use research to gather the necessary insights from your customers, prospects, the competition, and the marketplace to develop fact-based approaches to building effective and efficient growth plans. And, much like a general contractor, we partner with internal teams or carefully selected, vetted individuals and organizations to execute the strategies and plans, as well as provide oversight and management to ensure we stay on brand and plan. To learn more about our services, visit theponzigroup.com. As I said, I have Amy Levy, the CEO of Amy Levy Public Relations, on to talk about all things public relations. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm excited. I think I say that to all my guests, but I am actually really excited to have you on. We've had lots of conversations, and we come from the similar marketing background and agency work and things like that. So I'm sure we're going to have a lot of stories to talk. I love to tell stories on my show, and those are some of the questions I am going to ask you. But to put you and your business in context for my audience, why don't you take a few minutes and tell us about you?
So my company is called Amy Levy Public Relations, and I'm based in Los Angeles, California. I started on November 1st, 2002, which was the day after I left the Anti-Defamation League, a nonprofit that fights bigotry and prejudice. I had been there for 5 years. And I finished up on Halloween and went out with all my friends to celebrate what my new beginning was going to be. People said to me, "Why don't you take the weekend? It's just Friday." And I said, "I'm starting my business tomorrow. I can't wait. I can't wait." And while I was at ADL, my interest in the food and beverage area and in entertainment and the visual arts and the performing arts, those all came into play as I had created a lecture series called The Power of the Written Word. And it was a lively conversation series that we did 4 times a year, and it was to bring young people to the charity. As you may know, donors and supporters of charities, they tend to skew a little older. And all the nonprofit organizations out there, whether they're disease related, American Cancer Society or ADL or, arts organizations, they all are looking for young people in their 20s and 30s who are interested in the cause. And so I thought, here's what I'm going to do. I got a donor to donate $15,000 to underwrite my program. I did these really cool invitations. I selected hotels as my venues where we could have open bar and delicious food and free valet parking. And then great speakers talking about issues of concern to ADL, which were censorship and rap music with lyrics that were offensive to some people, films and television programs that might have affected the gay community, the Jewish community, the African American community, the Latino community. And so we would have these speakers and we would talk about art and film and music and different business practices, and very relevant to people now. We talk about the cancel culture and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so when I decided to open my firm after having this successful experience with these lectures, and we would get 100 people that would come, and we brought so much new life into the organization, I wanted to represent people in those industries. So I've represented restaurants and up and coming fashion companies, beauty, cannabis, and I've loved that work. And I've helped restaurants that were just building out their location and thinking about their menus. And, I helped it become a reality. I'm certified personally in Allertrain, which is an organization that teaches restaurants and food manufacturers how to help people on specialty and restricted diets. So I think you and I have chatted a bit. I'm very familiar with gluten-free, dairy-free, kosher, nut-free, shellfish-free, people who are on those diets. So I've helped my clients who have restaurants on designing those menus that can help those people, and sourcing ingredients, whether it's finding a gluten-free pasta or finding, flour that doesn't have any cross-contamination. Mm-hmm. So I've launched restaurants, I've launched new food products. I'm very interested in food waste and food technology and food science. So those are areas that I work in. And
where do you think, you work in a variety of industries. Is there a favorite that you like to work in? And let me go back to the name of your company, Amy Levy, PR, Public Relations, right? Yet we're talking about marketing, what I consider more marketing stuff. So let's start there. How do you position yourself? Are you really a PR firm, or are you a consulting firm? Are you a marketing firm, or all of the above?
I would say our company, Amy Levy Public Relations, is a company that we sort of serve as an umbrella. All these things fall under us, under the umbrella. Marketing, crisis communications when a company is having a problem, or they have to have a product recall, or there's been sexual harassment between two people. Then I come in and I handle a crisis. I work with cannabis companies from seed to store, people who are manufacturers, growers, cultivators, dispensaries. If I don't do the thing they need that falls under the umbrella, I find somebody else. If somebody needs a new website and they come to me, I help find them a web designer. I'm not a web designer at all. I cannot do any of that stuff, but I know what I like, and I can art direct, and I can say, okay, we need this and we need that. So when somebody comes and says, we think that we need to hire a marketing agency or a PR firm or a crisis firm, or somebody who's going to just get the word out, doing publicity. Publicity is when we work with the media and we write a press release and we reach out to journalists, at targeted publications, whether it's a food client and we're getting them into food and wine, or we're getting them to do a segment on the Today Show, or we want them to be in Eater LA, or we want to help them sponsor a pop-up, or we want to partner with a wine company and do wine tastings, which is stuff that we've been doing virtually during the pandemic. And whatever it is that we need to get their message out. And one of the things that's interesting about our firm is that having worked at a charity for 5 years, I said my one rule is all of my clients have to give back to the community in some way. Whether you're selling cookies in front of your restaurant, with the Girl Scouts, whether you're sponsoring a local baseball team, whether you are going to elementary schools and helping out on career day and making a donation to their library, or if a company that does, let's say, gluten-free cookies, you're giving to the Celiac Disease Foundation or other organizations that help people that are celiac or gluten intolerant. We think it's very important that our clients give back. It doesn't mean just money. It could be their time. But I think that that's what makes our clients interesting. And I think that that's what makes them beloved by their customers. Millennials nowadays, they really want to know where their products are made. They will spend more money if they like what you're doing in your community. And social entrepreneurship is becoming more important for every brand. And we manage their social entrepreneurship. So
I was going to say, you've got quite it's an eclectic mix of services. Well, I can look at myself and say the same thing, because a lot of what you said is I don't build websites. I find people to do that. And to me, it's more about the strategic side of marketing, as you know, the way I like to talk, and market research and really understanding those nuances. But I do want to take you back, because public relations has changed quite a bit I'll say the last 5 years, 10 years, whatever time frame we want to put on it. So how has that changed really your focus and maybe reshaped your business?
I would say one of the biggest ways is sharing information. When I started my firm in 2002, you could always tell how successful I was at the time because I had big binders for each client. So if you came into my office and you saw that I had 6 binders or 12 binders, you'd say, oh boy, she's doing well. She has a lot of interesting clients. You'd also see that I had stacks of press kits in my office. A press kit is a folder that has all the information that a journalist needs to write a story. Mm-hmm. So if it's headshots of the CEO, if it's pictures of the product, if it's FAQs, frequently asked questions about the brand, where they manufacture, what they're doing, what are their ingredients, what do they do that's special, and then pricing information. Where are the products sold? How much do they cost? Do they use a distributor? How do stores get these products? Do people find out about these products at trade shows?
Right, so how has this changed the nature of your
nobody
business?
Does press kit.
Nobody does that stuff anymore,
because
right?
Because if you needed information, Angelo, about my client wine chips, I would send you some product overnight, FedEx. I would send you high resolution pictures. Via email. I would send you a press release about the company via email. I would set up an interview for you with the CEO, and it would happen very quickly. In the olden days, and I'm aging myself, in the olden days, you'd send this press kit with all this expensive stuff. The folder was expensive. All these printed materials on color printouts and discs and things, so that the journalist would have everything. And then you'd send it. And you'd have to go either, wait for FedEx to come pick it up or go to the post office and stand online and whatnot. And it took a long time. So it's the speed of sharing information. You can get just as beautiful, high quality, high resolution photos sent to a journalist in 2 minutes, whereas you used to have to ship it across the country. And so we care more about the environment, we care more about saving paper, and we care more about saving time. Because when I started the company 19 years ago, it was a lot of print. You wanted a few pages of a story for a client. And now it's all online.
Right. How is interacting with the media changed? I mean, I know there's a lot of consolidation. And so I'm imagining, I know that how you interact and try to get stories for your clients and stuff. I mean, some of that is reshaped, especially in some of the newspapers and things like that.
Yes, it's newspapers and television and radio news. That's always been a daily business, right? And magazines, they work on a long lead, but journalists now, they don't even answer their phone a lot of the time. And so the personal connection and the personal relationship that I always enjoyed about PR, the time spent talking to a journalist and shaping a story and saying, oh, yeah, he's available for this, or yes, he's very charismatic. He would be terrific on your morning show. This is all done in an email now. And nobody wants to read a 6-paragraph pitch and then a long press release. They want you to get in and out. They want you to say, Dear Angelo, I hope this finds you well. I'm writing to you today about my client Allie's gluten-free goodies. And attached, or not even attached, no photos yet, because they don't want to see your photos yet unless they request. So let me just give you 5 bullet points about why Allie's is different. And here's a brief press release. It's almost like a publicist is apologizing for taking up the journalist's time. And journalists and PR people are partners. We work together. We give them the content. They turn to us for stories, and we count on each other to survive. They help us get our clients' message to their readers. And we target them because we know that their readers are the ones that will be interested in the story. Mm-hmm. And so the information is passed very quickly, and it's mostly electronically. I have a colleague who works with me who says, don't call them, Amy. They don't want to get a phone call. You don't want to get blacklisted. Just send them the information. And if they're interested, they'll respond. And then I sit back patiently, sitting on my hands so that I don't type a follow-up email saying, hey, Angelo, did you get it? Hey, Angelo, just checking in. Wanted to see if you got the information that I sent you about my client. Would love to have a conversation if you're available. Nobody wants a conversation.
Yeah.
So
those dynamics have really changed the shape of what you do. And it
barely resembles what my business was when I first started.
Yeah. So let's talk about your business for a little bit. So this is kind of a 2-part question. What have really the challenge has been in growing your business? So I would like to ask this question. What keeps you up at night thinking about growing your business? And then we'll kind of layer in, how did the pandemic and last year, because we're now slightly beyond that, but last year, impact your business?
So I'll start with that impact, if I may. So last year, as you know, the pandemic began in March. And in March, the first week in March is one of the biggest trade shows of the year that I go to. It's called Natural Products Expo West. It's in Anaheim, California. I live in Los Angeles, and I go down there usually for 3 or 4 days. I don't travel back and forth. I stay there in a hotel. And I had my hotel booked, and I had several clients who were going to be exhibiting. They had already sent their materials. I was working with a company called Sealy Mints, and they have the Sealy Mint Farm, and they sent all of their product to Anaheim. And I had a meeting with the client and before we were going to head down to the show, and then the show was canceled. I had a client named Shroom Meats that was going to launch their product that is mushroom shreds, balls, and patties. It's a meat alternative. It's plant-based, made with mushrooms, and it's a product for vegans and vegetarians, or even people that are on a flexitarian diet and try to eat vegetarian a few days a week. So they were going to be exhibiting, and then I had other food companies that were going to be exhibiting, and everything stopped. The show was canceled. Nobody was able to get their food back. People had spent thousands and thousands of dollars to book these hotel rooms, to book this exhibit space, to book the added features of the show, whereas they'd be showing stuff in glass showcases or sponsoring a cocktail party, whatever it was, the whole thing was closed. And that's when clients started to say, Amy, I think we need to take a pause. So my clients work on a monthly retainer basis, and many of them said, let's just, pull the plug and halt right now until we see what this pandemic's going to be. Maybe it'll be over by May. And well, Angelo, you and I know that it wasn't, but it was tough. It was tough because I was ready, willing, and able to work, as they say, and everything was put on hold. So what did I do for these clients? I said, we need to figure out ways to pitch the people that we would have seen at the trade show. So we started to make some videos where, let's say, I pretended that I was the restaurateur and my clients would show me their product, and we would do it on Zoom, and we would say, wow, look at this. You can make delicious chili, or you can make this, or you can do that. And I said, well, how would this work in my restaurant? How would I do this? Because we weren't able to go to restaurants to pitch the products because the restaurants weren't open. And we weren't able to go to grocery stores and pitch because the corporate offices of all the major stores, they weren't open either. And so we had to pivot, and we had to pivot fast because I needed to make sure my business kept running. And then I started to look at businesses that were helpful to people that were experiencing COVID, whether it was our mutual friend at Energy Experts International, Mark Brenner, and he was doing things that were making workplaces safe and factories safe and restaurants safe. And so we started to promote him and talk about how he was helping the environment, and he was keeping viruses out of offices with ultraviolet lights and whatnot. And we talked to people that were in crisis, because a very big part of my agency is helping people with crisis. I had an actress who was suing somebody in a studio for sexual harassment. I had a doctor who was being harassed by people who didn't believe in her research. We had a restaurant where the chef had a problem with one of the employees, and now others were coming forward and suing. And so I put my crisis hat on, and I was helping these people. And because at the beginning, we couldn't really do any PR, any publicity, any media outreach. We couldn't do that at the beginning of the pandemic because every story was just about COVID, about how many cases there were in each region and in each state and in the country, and what was the government doing. Were schools going to stay closed? Were people going to be under lockdown? Were people being safe at home? So that's all the stories that there were. And it would have been almost embarrassing, inappropriate, and offensive to be pitching anything other than a COVID story to the media.
Right. Well, this is a great example of pivoting. I mean,
right.
If you stayed in the PR lane, you might have driven off the cliff.
Right.
So
absolutely.
So by pivoting and looking for alternatives, and it sounds like you got pretty inventive there. And I think that's great because I mean we're both in marketing, and there's always a challenge, and you and I've talked. I mean that mid-February, March, April, all I saw was people chopping their marketing budgets, and to your point,
it's the first
delaying
thing they want to cut, right?
Yeah, that's that investment versus expense mentality, and as much as I could say don't do it, and trying to put facts in front of them, they didn't necessarily listen to me. And later on they did, because then their business didn't quite go the way they wanted to, even though they were putting more cash at the bottom line. They dropped out of the marketplace, and other companies that didn't ended up taking advantage of it. So, I mean, we tried to counsel like you and pivot and find areas where we could contribute, and not necessarily the same way, because, nobody had a crystal ball or could predict what was going to happen in the next.
Nobody knew how
90.
long this was going to take. Nobody knew how long it was going to be until the world started to open up. And people in food and beverage and hospitality suffered the most. It was terrible. It was terrible. And I'll tell you, though, our clients in cannabis were thriving. People started using more cannabis. People were home. They were anxious. They were in pain. They were suffering. And both medicinal and recreational cannabis users, they were using more. People in neighborhoods were coming outside of their houses and talking to neighbors because they felt so isolated. And they would stand on my block with masks on, talking to each other, meeting with a beer or a glass of wine out on the street and talking about their troubles, talking about what it was like to live in a house where maybe the mother and father work and one or two or three kids were all on Zoom trying to go to school and figure it out, and the Wi-Fi was sketchy. And this was a time when people like me just sort of started writing and started blogging and reaching out to friends across the country and asking how it was going for them, And I found that many agencies decided to close shop. Many people started to leave the big cities where they were. They didn't want to pay high rents in New York City or San Francisco or Los Angeles, and they moved to be closer to family or to live places that, as long as they're on Zoom, why shouldn't I move to Omaha? I've always wanted to. I just spoke to a woman this morning who I'm working on a project with. Last week, she moved from Woodland Hills, California to Austin, Texas, because she said, oh my God, you can't believe that you can get such a great place for a much lower price. And it's a fun place to live. And her kid's going to go to public school there. And I'm excited for her new journey. We went through something similar in 2007, 2008. When the economy was terrible, people were saying, oh, you know what? I can barely pay my staff. I can barely pay our office rent. I certainly can't pay for marketing right now. And so we found new ways to do marketing for our clients and expand our horizons. As I said, when I was at ADL, I loved doing entertainment. And hey, I live in LA. Every movie studio is here. But I found that I wanted to do things that were a little deeper, and I love working with entrepreneurs. I love working with well-funded startups, helping people who have a great idea and they're going to make it happen. Because I have been through it before. So I know co-packers and I know commercial kitchens and I know people who are accountants and attorneys and people who can protect someone's intellectual property and get them the licenses they need to go into business. So I do a lot of business development, not just marketing. I come in the marketing door. I'm not an accountant. I'm a business person and I help people find solutions. And sometimes they fall under marketing and sometimes they don't, like we said earlier, I'm not a web designer. I'm not a package designer, except I know the people who can do it. And I can find glass jars for their cannabis flower, and I can find safe packaging for their gluten-free cookie. I can find when I launched Stack Wines, which is 4 individual glasses of wine stacked on top of each other with a shrink wrap. I met the founders at a food industry meeting through Cornell University Hospitality. And one of them stood up and said, we just came out with this new product. We're calling it Stack Wines. And I said, oh, I have to work with you. And at the event, this was in the middle of a seminar. And at the end of the seminar, we went to the back of the room. We started talking. They came into my office and they signed with me the next day. And 2 weeks later, I got them in Time Magazine and on Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz was doing a story on how red wine is healthy. And I said, well, this is great because it's 4 individual glasses. You may just want to use a little red wine in a recipe. You may want to just have 1 glass of wine. You're coming home from work and you're cooking and you'd like to sip a glass of wine, but you don't want to waste a whole bottle. And Dr. Oz loved that pitch and drank the wine on television. And I was in Las Vegas at a trade show for a financial client and a merchant services client. And they called me and they said, I'm watching Dr. Oz on television right now, drinking our wine. And I was just exhilarated because even though I've been doing this for a long time, every blog post, every story, every victory, every time I get a client into a supermarket, because I do that too. I'm not a distributor. I'm not a broker, but I have relationships with people. I just got a client into Gelson's, and it's like every time I do that, I get so excited, So I lie awake at night wondering what keeps me up at night is what can I do to keep them happy?
What do you think? What is, I'll say, your greatest success, and what are you most proud of?
staying open, learning how to pivot. You and I have talked about a few of my clients. I had a client, Not Your Daughter's Jeans, and though I'm not, known as a fashion agency, Not Your Daughter's Jeans had a story, and their story was, our jeans contour your hips, push up your butt, and flatten your tummy. And I said, well, we got to get some celebrity or somebody to, we want to get a celebrity who can be aligned with our brand, but we don't have the budget for it. But I heard that Rachel Ray was going to be doing a program at a Williams-Sonoma in Beverly Hills. She was going to be signing books. And I said to my client, Lisa, you know what? Rachel Ray wears jeans every single day on the show. She always wears jeans. Let's bring her jeans. Let's bring a size 2 and 4 and 8 and 6 and 10. And let's bring all the styles in some bags and go see her for this book signing and talk to her. And we both bought the book and we went over to her and I said, hey, Rachel, look at these jeans. These are awesome. And I showed them and I said, they contour your hips and they push up your butt and they flatten your tummy. And she said, girls that like to eat need tummy tuck jeans. You can use that. And I said, okay. And I sped to my office and I wrote a press release that said, Rachel Ray says girls that love to eat need tummy tuck jeans. And I sent that to Diane Sawyer, and I sent it to Oprah Winfrey, and I sent it to The View, and I sent it to the New York Times style section. And everybody wanted a pair. Everybody wanted to try them. And soon they were everywhere. And people had said no when they tried to bring the jeans line in and say, hey, would your store carry these? A lot of people said no, thank you. And but after Oprah wore them on TV, then suddenly everybody wanted them. And then every paper in the country was covering it. And everybody was excited. And soon there was a department at Nordstrom and a department at Bloomingdale's. And soon we did a casting call in my office for models who were plus size to come and try on these jeans. And we took pictures of them and we ran an ad in the New York Times Magazine. And we ran ads in Good Housekeeping. And I sent the jeans to people all around the country that were friends of mine and told them to go into local boutiques and ask them to carry them. So my mother-in-law was in La Quinta and my parents were in New York and I had friends in Maine and Chicago and Seattle. And I sent them all jeans and they loved them. And the company was hugely successful, and I felt very proud of it. I have a client I'm working with now, Cobbler King. He's been in business for 27 years, and it's been tough during the pandemic. He makes the most gorgeous cobbler and beautiful puddings and pies, sweet potato pie and peach cobbler and blackberry cobbler and pecan pie, so good. And now he's launching a new line of frozen waffles. And we're trying to get him on Shark Tank right now. We're going through all the processes, and I think we're almost at the finish line. So fingers crossed. So and we're working with him. We're trying to get him somebody who can do shipping for him nationwide, so that he can send cobblers nationwide, because he's never done nationwide shipping. And so we're trying to make that an important part of his portfolio. So we do all those kinds of things.
So, okay. I love that. I love stories like that, because you just, they start to snowball, and, if you're taking advantage and you see the opportunity, you can really go with that. But I'm going to tell you a story that I'm going to call it a funny story. Hopefully you and the audience will find it funny. And then I'm going to ask you about one. So this actually is for a food product. And I won't say the name of it, but it was a margarine. And they had come to us. They were still producing it, and they were talking to our agency. And we probably had 3 or 4 meetings with them. And it was narrowing down to us and one other firm. So the client called, the prospect, was very excited. Today he was actually bringing the product so we could finally taste it. So bring the bagels, which we did. So during the meeting, they're displaying it, they're talking about it. And of course, we anxiously, grab the bagel and start to butter it all up. And one by one, you can see the faces of our team take a bite. It tasted horrible. It was, it was god awful. And we're trying to smile, knowing that everyone, not a single person on our team, thought it tasted very good. And it was a hard decision. I mean, it was funny because we'd been pursuing this company for probably 6 or 7 weeks, and then we finally got that right down to us and somebody else. And it's like, how are we going to market this product? It's just awful. So that's what I call a funny story, that is the pursuit of new business. And we decided to back away because we couldn't feel comfortable marketing a product that, just didn't taste well. Your turn.
Well, I know you to be a person who is authentic, and I think that you have integrity, and you just couldn't tell that story with a straight face and look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm going to tell the world to buy this product because I wouldn't buy it myself. I had somebody come into my office, and I had heard she had it was a health and wellness client, and she had different services that she provided, physical therapy, massage, and whatnot. And she came into my office and had a meeting. She had her purse, and she put it on the table. We had a whole presentation for her on this table. Materials, things that we wanted to show her. She had things that she wanted to show us, and she had this huge purse. And I said, oh, do you want to put it on the floor or put it on this chair? And she said, oh, no, I can never put my purse on the floor. It's very bad luck and very bad karma. And I said, okay, all right. So I said, you can hang it on this chair and whatnot. And we're talking, and we're doing the presentation, and she's showing us stuff, and we're telling her how we can help her. And her cell phone rings. And I think it was her assistant. And she started cursing and yelling at the assistant. And, where the this is that, and da-da-da-da-da-da, and, all the choice words. And then she said, just get it done. And then she hung up on her. And she looked to me and she said, okay, so, and then this, we wanted to talk to you about this. And I said,
didn't skip a beat.
I said, what was that? And she said, my assistant, she's an idiot. And I said, something? I think that I'm going to stop you right there. Because if this person is your assistant, and there's a lot of people looking for jobs right now. There's a lot of people out there that could probably come and be your assistant. But you've picked this one for some reason. So she must have some good qualities. She must do something right. Or she's always terrible and you're just lazy and you haven't gone out to get some. So you're not really great with human resources. And yet you're in health and wellness. And I just got a little taste of how you talk to people. And I think that's how you're going to talk to me and my team. It's not going to work. So thank you so much. Let me give you your purse. Let me give you your bag. And I'm going to show you to the door. Best of luck to you. But I don't ever need to hear anybody bring that toxic mouth into my team ever. And I suggest that you go and apologize to your assistant and either let her go or find somebody else, or be respectful because this person is working with you. I don't want to ever hear that mouth again. Sorry. Yeah. No thanks.
And I commend you on that because, so many times when.
And I needed the job. I couldn't use the money.
Well, when you're running an agency, and I go back to my days, I mean, that was part of the evaluation is how did they treat people? Because when they come into the office and they started treating our people bad, we never put up with that. And, I'll call it one of the greatest agency days was the very first time we fired a client because they were disruptive to the agency. And they were a big fee client too. I mean, it was a lot of infighting about what to do about this. But at the end of the day, our people hated working with them. They were extremely disruptive. They were very rude. They treated us and mostly the assistants and things like second-class citizens. And we made that conscious decision to terminate them because we'll find another client and replace the money. But I didn't want to start replacing people because they were quitting because they hated this client.
Yeah, I had a client like that we fired. he was one of the wealthiest individuals in Los Angeles, actually, and he had a charity that he was fully funding himself generously. And he has since passed away. But he called us to come to his office, and you needed to be, you needed the person in the lobby to get you into the elevator. You needed to be announced, and they needed to welcome you up. And my assistant was going to a meeting there, just the two, just them. And he made her wait 25 minutes in the lobby. And then when after the meeting, the meeting went well and the content was good, his daughter called and said, can you not send so and so over? What is up with her frizzy hair and her messy notebook? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. She has curly hair. Are you suggesting that she should blow her hair straight to come to your office to have the meeting? Let's talk about the substance of the meeting, not. And you made her wait 20 minutes in the lobby. I just do not play that game. If you're fresh to my people, I'm the advocate. I'm going to go in there and say, sorry, no, this doesn't happen. No account is worth it to be abused. We work very hard. We are in a creative business where, I was lying in bed last night watching a commercial, a news story with my husband where they announced, in fact, I targeted it. I texted it to my client, Cobbler King, last night at 10 o'clock. And it was that Target is going to be doing, to add products from more than 500 Black-owned companies. And I said, oh my God, this is the gentleman that's doing the waffles we're trying to get him on Shark Tank. And so I took a picture of the screen, Target to add products from more than 500 Black-owned companies. And I said, let's get those waffles into Target. And he wrote back, oh, I know, I heard today. Let's do it. Let's start with a region and then go national. Because I didn't want to wait until today. I wanted to tell him now. I heard it on the news now. I'm texting him at home right now to tell him. I'm so excited. When I hear about these opportunities, I'm so happy, and I call it, our waffles. Let's get our waffles into Target.
Yeah, exactly.
Waffles. So, I feel that when we take a client, I feel that they're coming into the Amy Levy PR family, and I feel close to them. And, I laugh with them and I cry with them and I worry about them. And what else can I do? And being in the service business, Angelo, people are always out there trying to poach your clients. People are always trying to say, oh, what can we do for you? Oh, I didn't know you had an agency. Oh, even though it says for media inquiries, please contact Amy Levy Public Relations. Right. So people are always trying to stab you in the back. And I don't let that happen.
Well, and we can't, right? Because we do stick up for our clients. To your point, even in the pitches, I start, and I'm talking to a prospect, and I'm using the word we and our, because that's how I feel. You have to be ingrained. If you just want to hire, a quote unquote vendor to be your wrist, as I would call it, and just execute stuff, I'm not your guy. I need a seat at the table. I need to be able to have a voice. I need to tell you that you're wrong. And not worry about repercussions. It's why you hire me. If you hire me and don't want to listen to me and don't want my advice, then frankly, I shouldn't be there, because I've not been known to stay quiet.
Right. And that's what happened when you didn't like the way the margarine tasted on the bagel.
Yeah, exactly.
I know that you do a lot of very thorough research for your clients. Your clients are so lucky to have your years of experience in this space. I would consider any of my clients lucky to work with you. And the Ponzi Group certainly has such a great reputation. What happens when you do a focus group and everybody in the room says, ugh, I hate this product? How do you spin that when you go back to the client? Well, we did our focus group. We met with, 15 women between the ages of 18 and 49 and 15 men between the ages of 18 and 49. And here are the results. How do you spin that?
Well, I don't spin it. Actually, I tell exactly the way it is. So I worked with Fox Television, and they were looking at a new show in the action sports industry, which I was very involved with, and called 54321. And so the New York Fox team flew out, and we were in Southern California, and I conducted probably 6 or 8 focus groups with the target audience, teens, and we did everything from tested the concept to showing them potential guests and getting feedback, and kind of the different episodes within the show. And at the end of the day, we sat around, had a meeting, and we got our reports together, and they said, okay, let's hear it. And bottom line was, the show's going to fail. It's going to fail because of X, Y, and Z. They looked at each other, and their answer was, and I'm shortening the conversation, we don't care. We think we're right. They're just kids. What do they know? 6 months in and out. It died a horrible death, which later came back, and they listened to and read our reports and brought us back in for conversations, and it became Fuel Television. And that lasted for many, many, many years because they didn't want to listen. And so with so many times, we get in there and the clients just say, yeah, I hear you, but we're not listening, or we don't believe them, and to me, it's like, why did you hire me if you're only going to make up your own mind? And
Right.
yet there's the others that just want to know. I had the chance to work with the Jackson family wines, and I think we talked about this, and one of them was La Crema. La Crema is one of my favorite Chardonnay. So it was a boutique winery that they had bought, and all of a sudden it really started to sell, and the volume was picking up. And in the marketing meetings, it was like, we don't know why. We have no idea why people like this wine. And so my job was to travel around the country and actually hold focus groups with customers to try to determine why they love this wine. And it ended up at the end of the day, after all that research and all that money, it was the promise of the name La Crema, or Creme de la Creme. And people bought into it's, the best of the best. And so just that little piece of information helped, define the marketing and the direction. And the clients listened, and it's an incredible brand that has just done really well. But again, there's others. Simple Green, the product Simple Green, right? Household cleaner. I was there when it went from engine degreaser to household product. And then we extended the lines to golf cup cleaners, to barbecue cleaners, to gun cleaners. Oops, no gun cleaner. Research says nobody's going to buy it. And they listened. That product never made it to market. So, there's a mix. And to me, that's part of the research is to lay the facts, is provide information so the marketing team can make an intelligent decision. You either listen to it or you don't.
You think that somebody said that they have to do research because they always do research, and
I'm not sure why, because I was working with a team out here providing information. That's how I was pretty ingrained in that. So whether it was quantitative or qualitative, and I think that there was the idea of the show. Action sports was really big, and they wanted to carve out a niche within the television, in the Fox shows. But I think they had the wrong executives looking at it, right? They had the executives that were divorced out of New York that had no idea. When I flew back to New York for a big sports conference, and there was several of us that came out of California, and I'm an ex-New Yorker, but I'm at the conference and I'm wearing, my Hawaiian shirt and shorts, and the guy next to me is wearing a 3-piece suit, and I'm sitting on a panel with people that are just only thinking a certain way when it came to the surfing and skateboarding and snowboarding, and yet the guys that came from California with me, we were speaking the truth, and whether they listened or not, it didn't really matter. That's what it was, and so we found disparity in executives around the country. Same thing with the Sporting Goods Association. They flew me to Florida to be a keynote speaker. I spoke at Magic 3 times, the big fashion. And half the people that sat in the audience had no idea what I was talking about. It was no relevancy to it, right? So I think it gets down to, you have to present the facts, whether I do research now or for anybody else. And if I'm asked, I give them my guidance, I give them my recommendations, and then a lot of times I get involved in the actual marketing discussions because that's one of my benefits, right? I can do the research, but I know how to interpret the research. I'm not just a researcher. So
Yeah.
I can take that and interpret it into what it's the actions and things we should do. And I think that's what has helped me and to be involved in a lot of different things.
You know, it's funny. When I was still living in New York, I worked at a big ad agency, and I did direct to consumer pharmaceutical advertising. And we were one of the first groups to ever do that. Now, I mean, you can't watch a show without 40 commercials for drugs.
Right.
But, you know, there was branded and unbranded. And the branded was when they mentioned the name of the product, but they couldn't tell you about the indications. And then there was the unbranded. You know, oh, do you have a runny nose? Do you have this? Do you have that? Marion Merrill Dow has some solutions. And then there were commercials that said, ask your doctor about Seldane, because that was a product I worked on. And I remember when I worked on the launch of Proscar, which was for prostate enlargement, the entire campaign was geared towards women, because the research showed that it was the women who said, oh, you know, Herman, you need to go to the doctor. You get up to go to the bathroom 7 times every night. You have this problem. You have that problem. So all of our advertising was to women. Cooking Light magazine, which is no longer, but Cooking Light magazine and Women's Day, that all of the campaigns were geared towards women 55 plus who were asking the doctors, who were pushing, you know, husbands were not out there asking their doctors embarrassing questions. And the product was, I remember we waited, the Food and Drug Administration, we were waiting for their approval. When a drug is approved, they used to have this thing called the pink sheets. And when it came out of the pink sheets that it was approved, we could run our ads. And it was all towards women, even though no women were going to use that product.
But see, that's the beauty of understanding. So I just finished a shopping behavior study that's been impacted by COVID. When I started the study, I was thinking, okay, it's going to skew women. But the reality was that the greater opportunity was men. In the conclusion is it's men because women are sending their husbands to do the shopping, you know, and staying out of the store.
With a list.
With a list. Now, I'm one of those, my wife will say, where the hell were you? I go, I was at the supermarket. And she said, but you've been gone an hour. I said, I know, but I like to go up and down every aisle in case I see something I want to buy. She's like in and out in 30 seconds. I like that. That's an event for me.
Right, me too. I'm exactly the opposite. My husband says, text me the list, leave me the Target card, tell me what you want, write it down, put in parentheses, you know, get the detergent that has the OxyClean mixed in. Make sure you get the one that's the reduced fat, because he doesn't really like to shop with me because I work in the business. I like to say, oh, look, I saw that product at the fancy food show and now they're on the shelf. I'm so excited. Or, oh, wow, they're private labeling that at Trader Joe's. I know who makes that. And so it's totally an adventure for me. And at the beginning of the pandemic, that was the only place I went, was the supermarket, with the masks and the gloves, and then with the spraying, with the Windex on all the products. And it was like, why are you washing those products? I don't know. I thought I saw on the news you're supposed to wipe off the butter. You know, I read an article that it's important to wipe down the milk and leave your bags outside in the sun, and you know.
Yeah. So this has been a fun conversation, and you know, I think that, you know, people listening to this, I mean, a lot of insights, and I think that, you know, in growing your business and things you've done for your clients, I mean, really pivoting and grabbing hold of nuggets and really merchandising those on. I think there's some wonderful advice and areas that they can take forward. So, but I have one last question for you before we say goodbye. What do you want to accomplish that you've never accomplished yet?
I think that I would like to change the game for somebody who is in crisis. I'd like to fix their problem. fix their problem and have them pivot with their reputation fully, so that I get them out of the problem and then put them on the right path. Sometimes people come to us because they want marketing, they want PR, they want a launch of something, they want to revitalize an old brand. There's been changes with the C-suite, and they want to, sort of change the image of the company. But what I haven't done is have somebody come with a crisis, we help them, and then we refocus them in a new way so that they're better than they ever were. That's something that I would like in 2021, to take one of our crisis clients and fix the problem and make them even better than ever.
All right. Well, we're going to leave on that high note. So why don't you, this is great. Why don't you tell the audience about you and your contact information, your website, LinkedIn, all that good stuff, and how they get a hold of you.
So they can find me on my website at amylevypr.com. That's AMYLEVYPR.com. We're in Los Angeles, California, and we would love to hear from them. And we're on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter and Facebook. Amy Levy, Public Relations.
All right, Amy, thank you so much. This has been wonderful, and I'm so happy you were able to come on today.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Take care.
Amy, I want to thank you for joining me here on the show today, and I want to thank you out there in podcast land for listening to us here today at the Business Growth Cafe. If you are a subscriber to the show, I want to thank you very much. And if you're not a subscriber, it's about time you do, right? Because we have shows on a weekly basis with a lot of great insights from a lot of folks that you can learn from to help your business grow. Now, if you need help with your business growing, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn or at theponzigroup.com, or really, frankly, just Google me and I'll show up. And my services can range from anything from being a fractional CMO to being a marketing consultant to actually executing a lot of different services that you may need to help grow your business, whether that's market research, whether that's brand and positioning and messaging, or developing long-term strategic plans. And if you want to get the tactical stuff going, websites and social media, I have a lot of partners that I can introduce you to help you execute the plans that you hire me to do. So again, thank you for joining me here at the Business Growth Cafe. I hope you enjoyed the show. And if this is your first time, go back, download a few others, take a listen. There's a lot of great talent that I've had on the show and a lot of great education, if you will. I've got over 130 shows now, so there's going to be something at one of them that you're going to love to listen to. And please join me here next week at the Business Growth Cafe.
Thank you for listening to today's discussion at the Business Growth Cafe with your host, Angelo Ponzi. Take a moment to subscribe to this podcast and visit our website at www.businessgrowthcafe.com. Read Angelo Ponzi's blogs at www.theponzigroup.com.